Hey, yo, yo. I still haven't thought of a recurring catchphrase. Thanks for, thanks for clicking. Thanks for coming. Uh, I know I haven't initially, and on the channel intro, I said that I wanted to do a daily, and it's been difficult to keep up. But I'm I'm just gonna keep on doing it as frequently. I mean, I'm going to pursue the specific intended channel purpose here as frequently as I can, as frequently as it seems reasonable. So, though I'm just gonna burn through everything, I guess, and maybe play some games later. But the channels that I have been watching in preparation as a summarization are Brian Jung. So I would first give some props to Brian Jung here. This guy's doing really good, very frequent crypto content, and I'll go through some of my thoughts on what he's saying here, or a thought on what he's presented in his last video. There's the Coin Bureau, this guy. So I'm going to be touching on him, which is a great channel as well. I definitely think that he's creating good content for anybody who's interested in crypto markets. This channel, Financial Education, I also watch on a regular basis. Very comical as well. And I think Financial Education's always been entertaining and a good guy. I've been watching Financial Education for longer than any of the other listed. And also Charlie Chang. So both Charlie Chang and Financial Education are more stock oriented. So I think we got a good balance in terms of like what I've been kind of watching in preparation to give her summarization, in terms of balance between the tech sector stocks, perhaps dividend stocks, and crypto. Like Brian Jung and Coin Bureau are both specifically crypto oriented. Financial Education and Charlie Chang are both more stock oriented, but I think there's a good balance. So just in watching Brian Jung's latest, he touched on, one sec here, I'm just going to make sure that my audio is correct here. So he just mentions the physical NFT that he's created here.
Just to see if they will go up in value. Another cool thing is, you guys may have not noticed this, but I had a little addition to our studio setup. This right here is actually one of the NFTs that I created with my graphic designer, and I was able to put into this physical item right here. So it's in the back of my studio. This is an NFT that you guys can pick up as well. We are selling it on Rarible. I do not recommend it because it is pretty expensive, and we're not going to be adjusting the price anytime soon. But
it's interesting to think about, number one, the NFT space, which I haven't spent as much time concerned about, but certainly interests me just because of the commoditization of essentially all intellectual property. I think it's a really interesting space, and the physical extension of products, of actually produced physical products and objects in relation to the NFT market is an interesting thing to consider. There was the development of a physical instantiation of crypto on behalf of the kid who was on the Lex Friedman podcast, and I just think that that's an interesting facet of the development, is extending crypto, the NFT, into the physical product. I think it needs to be done, but on some level could be facilitated through like app development. And again, looking at all of these apps that are available, there's a couple there's like the Swipe app, and there's a couple other apps that are approaching this, but how it's effectively accomplished is a different story. Who's going to actually offer the best example of that is another question. So That's the one thing that he mentioned during this video that I thought was that I thought caught my mind. Also, in a previous instance, he did mention in the one before this, he was talking about ICP and how, you know, I expressed my faith in ICP in previous instances, and it went through a little rebound. I do think that ICP is a really, it looks like a really, really great coin. It looks like a great token. So as far as Coin Bureau is concerned,
Words are often the difference between an idea amounting to nothing. You're funded. Those simple words are often the difference between an idea amounting to nothing and great tech innovation becoming reality. But who are the people murmuring those make or break words when it comes to crypto projects? Well, a lot of the time, it's crypto venture capitalists.
Yeah, so crypto venture capitalists and the funding rounds involved in bringing various tokens, various coins and platforms to a level of value and marketability. That's something that I want to delve more deeply into myself. And like the whole venture capital space is an interesting beast. I have spent a lot of time thinking about it, but if anybody has any thoughts on VC, let me know. First thing that comes to mind is that Elon Musk, as much of an intellectual and technical genius as he is regarded, if you actually think about the way that he is able to progress and achieve such things, it's all rooted in capital, and it's rooted in venture capital. Like at his most pure, I don't think Elon Musk is more than a capitalist. Like at his essential nature, I would say it's capitalism. It's the absolute edge of the razor of capitalism that allows people like Bezos and Elon Musk and Warren Buffett and the like. You know, that's not true of like all of the top billionaires in the world. That there are some that have originated products and brands that facilitated that. But Elon started by co-developing PayPal, or started with a company with his brother, and then later co-developed PayPal. But you can see how it's very capital oriented. So that's just one thing to think about, right? It's the capital that fuels the process at its most essential, and that's kind of why I've drifted toward that focus in this YouTube channel. Is just because I want to honor that. I want to honor the technical truth of the matter. And although money is not everything, one must not downplay the significance of economic factors in life. As far as financial education is concerned, he's recommending a couple interesting and kind of funny companies. Tattooed Chef. This guy's always good for a kind of larf.
07. Earnings are expected August 17th. We'll get into that in just a moment, okay? Woo-wee, okay? When you see something like this basically means there's an investor or a fund or several investors or several funds that believe there's something going on with Tattooed Chef in the short term, very short term, that is going to make this stock absolutely go nuts, okay?
Well, I give it to him for promoting or citing a stock that I've never heard about anywhere else. Like, it's important that people aren't just sheep. Tattooed Chef, I think this is his Las Vegas culture. I'm not sure if they're a Las Vegas-based company. I know this guy lives in Las Vegas, but yeah, props for choosing some lesser-known stocks, because that's what it's all about. It's about those rare individualistic stocks, and yeah, he gets into his picks here. And as far as Charlie Chang is concerned, he definitely has some good picks in here. I watched, he says Toyota, and he's always good about giving metrics and stuff like that. So I definitely think he's a good guy to watch as well. Now, Beeple is the one thing with regard to the NFT space that I just thought about. I thought about Beeple because I was into Beeple way before his $60-something million sale of his NFT. So, I mean, the work of Beeple is so inspirational and cool. And there's other, like, this is what's so interesting about it to me, is this combination of the CG, the digital media, and the value of that. We're as a generality shifting the entire value system of our culture, society, and economy toward the hyper technologically advanced, the hyper modern. And that makes sense to my mind. Not everybody is so interested in that direction. There's a lot of people that are still interested in more traditional modes, but I think Beeple is a good example of that. It's a real breakthrough that he was able to achieve such a value for his kind of raw CG, which has always been very cool. So anybody who's never checked out Beeple extensively, Mike Winkleman, you gotta love Beeple. Yeah, and the one thing that I was thinking about with regard to Beeple is his display pic here, because I always think about this display pic. Yeah. If I were to get in contact with Beeple, I would say, dude, I want this explained. I don't have the info on this display pic, but he's the man. Here you go. Day 5000. You got them all. And I haven't really looked into what he's using. If he's using Blender or Maya or a combination of multiple. I'm not sure. I actually, that's one thing I want to look into. What is Beeple using for his CG? Can we figure that out? I'll look into that. That's what I gotta look into. What app is Beeple using in order to produce his art? Is it Blender? And then what that causes me to think about is the fact that I'm choosing to pursue Blender right now after having spent a long time in Autodesk Suite and developing a skill set in Autodesk Suite, because I think that's the real revolution, is the free open source revolution. And anybody who has a computer can get Blender and start to learn how to use it, and then create infinitely cool things with it. And if we're using free open source software, then that's what it creates. It creates a fair intellectual plane for us all to interact and develop things. And that's what it's all about. I bought my Tokyo Ghoul shirt, and after looking, this has nothing to do with tech sector markets or anything like that, but with regard to my Tokyo Ghoul shirt, I started to look into this. This buddy at the gym said to me that it's an anime, and I thought it was pretty funny.
Ghouls are basically glorified vampires that eat human flesh. That's why this shit's stupidly popular on Tumblr.
Hey, old buddy, old pal! I'm your best friend! Even though I'm not actually relevant to the end. Go hit on that girl!
You mean the edgy teenager who looks like she has daddy issues?
Hi.
No, that one!
Do you want to come over for dinner?
Fuck yeah, she wants to have me for dinner. Oh god, she's having me for dinner!
Tough luck. I'm one of the strongest ghouls out there.
It's pretty manic. It's funny. So, props to Tokyo Ghoul. Just thought I'd mention that. Also, Grimes. I always think about Grimes, and she's my fellow Vancouverite, and I just wanted to also mention how inspirational Grimes is in all that she's doing. And she's always expressed an interest in architecture. And the one thing that came to my mind is that if I was Grimes, I would pursue being a prolific female architect, because she's in a good spot to do it. And I think that there's an integrity to that. So, big ups to Grimes as well. And then also big up to Linus Tech Tips. This build with Jake on Linus Tech Tips. I was trying to talk to Linus Tech Tips. They're a Vancouver-based group as well. I've always loved Linus Tech Tips. I first got introduced to them by Free Geek by somebody at Free Geek as we were doing like recycle builds of PCs. And if anybody is unfamiliar with Free Geek, I highly recommend checking it out because it's a good opportunity to learn about these dimensions of things. But the build that he does here with dual epic AMD 64 128 threads is another example that like of the amazingness of the Linus Media Group and the good things that they're doing, because that's ultimately what it's about, is pushing that envelope. And there's nobody else. There's no other tech reviewers. There's no other tech company. And he's a Vancouver boy as well. But there's no other tech reviewers that are doing that. Like if you compare what Linus is doing, everybody at Linus, to what other tech reviewers are doing, it's just inspirational because he's really that genius, in my opinion. Like he's really pushing that envelope. And there might be others, but I've never seen any others. A dual 64 core epic, and I'm not sure if they have dual 3090s, but yeah, just this is what we want. We want the more power, pushing the envelopes, supercomputer builds. Love Linus Tech Tips. Another thing that I was thinking about is Tom York on Twitter, who's always very politically oriented. Tom York never ceases to be interested in the politics of, I guess, London. When I went to London when I was a kid, it was at the same time as they released Hail to the Thief, and I would walk around London seeing Radiohead, Hail to the Thief advertisements, which was an interesting advertisement. Like you'd literally get on the tube in London and you'd see this big poster for Hail to the Thief, and I thought that was cool. So I just find it interesting how Tom York has always, from what I've seen out of him, been very inclined to mention politics, which, prima facie, my accounts could be interpreted by people as being politically oriented given the nature of my account. So yeah, I would also give big ups to Tom York because I haven't mentioned him too much, and he's always been a very, very significant source of creative inspiration. It takes a lot to do what he did from the basement, with really being able to put together a set on multiple. He's a multiple instrumentalist, and the technical aspects of what he's doing as a musician and artist is, I don't think, often appreciated enough. Like I'm a big Trent Reznor fan, I'm a big Tom York fan, but like if you do compare the quality of his piano vocal on certain releases that he's done, like From the Basement and stuff, it's impressive. And I've never seen Trent Reznor do a full set. I'm sure he could, but I've never seen him do a full set on piano and vocal quite to the same degree that Tom York did with that. So in addition, on Facebook, if you're watching this on Facebook, big ups, get at me. And there was something that I wanted to mention, but yeah, props to all my homies on Facebook. Props to Nardwar the Human Serviette, who I would just mention because he lives close to where I am. And I just wanted to mention him because John Ruskin I've met him several times, and he's a cool dude. And I would just give him props. Okay. Other than that, let's look at the charts. So Coinbase. And let's compare the numbers on Coinbase to Binance. Numeraire is at 49.14. Doge, the Doge is at 30 cents. I think I bought it at 37 cents. Polkadot is now on Coinbase. Can I buy Polkadot? Yes, I can. Oh, yay. Okay. I will buy some Polkadot because my friend Yarko Hayduk, who's the crypto genius that I'm friends with, has always recommended Polkadot. So I'm going to say buy Polkadot because Yarko says buy Polkadot. And Solana. Now we can trade Solana. So my most highly qualified crypto friend, Yarko Hayduk, has in previous instances recommended to me both Sol and the Polkadot. So right now I would say I might go $10 in Polkadot, $10 in Sol for Yarko. And my Cardano, I bought it $1.87 and it's now to $1.81 or $1.85 or something like that. So yeah, I mean the one thing, 24-hour change, here we go. None of which I purchased. Ethereum Classic. And let's look at the week. Ethereum Classic on the week is the #1 mover upward. Ampleforth governance token. It's impressive. And on the month, Quant. Ooh, one wishes one had bought Quant a month ago. That's a decent move. So yeah, I mean, as a general approach to market analysis and looking at dynamics of this, what I do is I'll go to each platform and then I'll just monitor the change on various timescales. So I look into the day, the week, the month, the year, the complete full chart. And those are the first things that I start to look at because it gives you a general grasp on market dynamics. And let's also compare the charts of Binance, which is another popular trading platform. So this is the one thing that is causing me a little bit of curiousness, is looking at the 24-hour change. So let's look at the 24-hour change of Ethereum. Is this Ethereum is at 2100. Ethereum is at 2100 on Binance and on Coinbase. What is Ethereum at? So if anybody has anything to say about this, I would like to hear it. Because in comparing the numbers, and if you're doing high frequency trading, those numbers are important. But in comparing the numbers of Ethereum on multiple platforms, symbol ETH, I have noticed some disparity. So, correct me if I am wrong, but Ethereum ETH is trading at $2,600 on Coinbase, and Ethereum ETH on Binance is listed as $2,100. Does anybody have any thoughts with regard to that? I mean, it's interesting. So yeah. there are a couple other things. I mean, like, if I were to impart an understanding of where I'm looking online for various things to people as a generality, for crypto, I would compare multiple trading platforms as I just have. So Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, other platforms, compare the prices as listed, really get a good broad scope of data in order to assess. For anything developer oriented or deep investigation, you should pay a lot of close attention to GitHub, the activities of various developers on GitHub. It's always a good place to look. So as a developer, as an aspiring developer, GitHub, Stack Overflow, W3 Schools, these are all places where I would look for self-education. So if you're as of yet unfamiliar with GitHub, familiarize yourself with GitHub. Familiarize yourself with Stack Overflow. I'm less into Stack Overflow than I am into W3C. But like W3C, honestly, if you want to start in a place to learn how to develop, to learn how to program, W3C and Code Academy, there's no shortage of good sources. But W3C has always been very impressive to me because of the way that they organize the educational materials. So that's just my 2 cents. You could never ever exhaust the amount of educational potential on just W3C alone. It's an amazing, amazing site, and props to the Web Consortium for being able to provide it. I think it's the best. Like, you're gonna need to spend a lot of time on this site, and you're gonna need to develop a lot of knowledge to be able to actually use GitHub effectively in any kind of serious way. But it can all be done quickly. Like, if you were to spend 6 months trying to learn how to program and become a developer, you could learn a lot, depending upon what kind of learning habits you have, or like depending upon what your approach is. And just another thing that I wanted to mention is about free open source software. So the XRP ledger, as a example of blockchain, is, I think, the most readily mentioned free open source token that I'm aware of. So let's look into a general understanding of a general appreciation of what free open source means.
Free and open source software. Free and open source software, FOSS, is software that can be classified as both free software and open source software. That is, anyone is freely licensed to use, copy, study, and change the software in any way, and the source code is openly shared so that people are encouraged to voluntarily improve the design of the software. 3. This is in contrast to proprietary software, where the software is under restrictive copyright licensing and the source code is usually hidden from the users. FOSS maintains the software user's civil liberty rights. See the 4 essential freedoms below. Other benefits of using FOSS can include decreased software costs, increased security and stability, especially in regard to malware, protecting privacy, education, and giving users more control over their own hardware. Free and open source operating systems such as Linux and descendants of BSD are widely utilized today, powering millions of servers, desktops,
I'm kind of behind. I should be running a Linux system because it took me a long time to get access to a Mac system, but ideally I would like to delve somewhat deeply into learning how to operate a Linux system, how to run a Linux PC. So Free Geek relates to that because their systems tend to be Linux. I mean, they're not exclusively Linux, but I'm putting that on my to-do list. Anybody who wants to learn Linux with me, let me know.
Smartphones, example, Android, and other devices. 4. 5. Free software licenses and open source licenses are used by many software packages. The free software movement and the open source software movement are online social movements behind widespread production and adoption of FOSS, with the former preferring to use the terms FLOSS or free Libra. Overview, edit. Further information, alternative terms for free software. Free and open source software, FOSS, is an umbrella term for software.
I would also mention, now that I'm thinking about it, how good a job Microsoft has done with the Edge browser. Because for the longest time, I was using Chrome, and this reader that I'm using to do this is by far the best the best text reader that I have encountered ever, because it allows me to isolate specific parts of the text, and no other reader, like if you're running an Apple system, you would expect the software to be the best there is, but there's so many details about what Microsoft is offering these days that I think just speaks to their good development habits as of late. Like, now that I own a Mac system, and I can compare it. Like, I've never had a Mac system. I've had iOS systems. I've had iOS computers, iPads for like the last, and iPhones, 10 years. But I never had a Mac OS system, and I was running the Apple ecosystem in terms of iOS. And so being able to compare it, I think, is a good thing. And there's so many good things about what Microsoft is doing, and their hardware as well, that I don't have enough money to invest into the hardware right now. But I just wanted to mention that.
Software that is simultaneously considered both free software and open source software. FOSS, free and open source software, allows the user to inspect the source code and provides a high level of control of the software's functions compared to proprietary software. The term free software does not refer to the monetary cost of the software at all, but rather whether the license maintains the software user's civil liberties, free as in free speech, not as in free beer. 3. There are a number of related terms and abbreviations for free and open source software, FOSS or FOSS, or free Libra and open source software. FLOSS or FLOSS is preferred by FSF over FOSS, while free or free Libra is their preferred term. Although there is almost a complete overlap between free software licenses and open source software licenses, there is a strong philosophical disagreement between the advocates of these two positions. The terminology of FOSS or free and open source software was created to be a neutral on these philosophical disagreements between the FSF and OSI and have a single unified term that could refer to both concepts.
So the way that I have thought about it is that if you're using a computer, if you want to program a computer, there are limitations so long as you don't understand the technical dimensions of programming. But if you do devote yourself to coding and to learning that dimension of things, then there's really no limitation to what you can do with your machines. And that's the appeal to anybody who is not interested in coding. And then at the same time, people who do become highly ensconced in development and coding sometimes become abstracted in their knowledge from familiarity with application program interfaces that are going to actually allow them to create things. So although you might be coding and developing something, I think it's also probably good to have a grasp on the implementation and the use of that software, because there may already be numerous options that will be readily available to people at no cost that would do a better job of what it is that you're trying to do in your own development. So the pieces of software that stand out to my mind are Reaper for, well, it's not entirely free, but I think Reaper is open source, and obviously Blender and Unreal Engine and Unity, because just given that list, and Cakewalk, given that list, allowing you to sound design, you're doing audio design, recording, production in audio, as well as pretty much anything that you could want to do visually. That list of applications will cover the entire gamut. If you want to create anything visual on a computer screen, there are no limitations what you can do with Blender, with Unreal Engine, and I would use a combination between Blender and then export and importation into Unreal Engine to facilitate certain ends. But between Blender, Unreal Engine, and Unity, and applications like Reaper and Cakewalk, there's no limitation to what you can do in all audio and all visual for free. Anybody who's interested. So I highly recommend everybody check those things out, because it's just impressive what the modern software market has to offer for free. And it took me a while to learn about those specific applications. So I guess that's the day's summary. One other thing that I did think about as a general philosophical point is that there is a division in society between paradigms, between perspectives of people. Certain people, I think, tend to gravitate toward a competitive model, or a purely competitive model, and that's rooted in what I consider to be the past. In the evolutionary process, we evolved from a state of physical competition and survival and transmission of genes from one generation to another based upon those harsh conditions. But we now exist within a modern state that is informational, intellectual, and I think warrants an acknowledgement and an honoring of the infinite potential of collaboration and cooperation to achieve truly valuable ends. So from my perspective, in thinking about the major problems of the world, so many of our problems, I think, are rooted in this animalistic, primitive, competitive version of reality, and it will prevent us and distract us from what is necessary in order to achieve truly miraculous things. We can devote ourselves entirely to the infinite potential of collaboration, cooperation, and creation, or we can devote ourselves entirely to this prospect of competition and exclusivity based upon that competition. And they're mutually exclusive options. And I just want to say that the former could allow us to achieve things like genetic technologies that would extend the lifespan and the health span of people, curing incurable diseases, creating a balanced utopia of great socioeconomic circumstances and quality of life for all human beings. Or we can all die in hell and murder each other brutally and torture if necessary. So, just a thought, I think it's a valid thought. Let's play some Apex. If we're going to compete, I'll meet you in the arena, dog.
Guess I know when I ask you. You pinky promised me that you would never tell. You left me on red like I couldn't tell. You pinky promised me that you would never tell.
I'm gonna play till I lose. See how many rounds. Alright, I'm gonna drone them, so I'll send the drone after them. I play drone strategy, so I'll snipe and back you up with the snipes. Draw them out. Draw them to where I can back you up with snipes.
I'll make this quick. I always do.
Getting my eyes in the sky.
Taking fire.
Backing out of my truck. Nowhere to go.
Charging over shields. Reloading. I'm down. I actually got hit.
My truck has been destroyed.
Enemy down.
That's continues.
Care package dropping from over there. Being shot at. Recharging my shields. It's a lot easier to stay alive in actual war.
I hope you are ready. Don't let me get the
They changed it up on me. I didn't have optics. It's not fair.
Getting an extra pair of eyes. I'm back. Load up.
I didn't know any better. She broke my heart and I let her into my heart. I know it shouldn't have let her. I let her into my heart. I didn't know any better. And when I'm alone, I wish she would phone, but she busy doing it better. I didn't know any better. She broke my heart and I let her. When did I lose touch? When did I lose her? She didn't love me. I was a loser. She was so up. She was a chooser. I let her walk away. I was a loser. I couldn't lose her. How could I trust her? I couldn't choose her. I couldn't choose her.
That's more like it. Yes, boys.
Walk away. I was a loser.
Save it up to face.
Oh, hells no. They're about to win. Gonna kick it into high gear.
I let her into my heart. I know I shouldn't have let her. I let her into my heart. I didn't know any better. And when I'm alone, I wish she would phone, but she busy doing it better. I didn't know any better. She broke my heart and I let her. I let her into my heart. I know I shouldn't have let her. I let her into my heart. I didn't know any better. And when I'm alone, I wish she would phone, but she busy doing it better. I didn't know any better. She broke my heart and I let her.
You're good, boy. Take him out. Don't let him rest. There's 2 down. By the back left. That's all you do. Come on. No, don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. No. So you're just listening to the Unts, Bitbird, Serenity, and E5 Pi. Peace out, y'all.